Hi. I'm tired of having this argument with people on forums who think they know more than they actually know or are deliberately being duplicitous. So I'm making this a public statement that has been made by other people. Linus Tech Tips 4 years ago made a public statement about this. So I'm not the first person, I'm not the last person. It's been made very clear by Microsoft and numerous other people. So what I've come across a few times on forums, including Bleeping Computer, Linus Tech Types, and some other forums, is people are saying, "Hey, you can get yourself a Windows key for $10, $20, $30, $5, and so on and so forth, and it's legal, and it's okay, it's legitimate," and it's not legal. It's not legitimate. So a lot of these websites that sell these are located in Hong Kong, where the jurisdiction of American law does not reign. The jurisdiction of Chinese law reigns. And if the Chinese government doesn't care if Microsoft is being ripped off by these gray market or black market websites that sell Windows and game keys and utilities keys at ridiculously low prices, well, China can do that because they don't have to follow the laws of the country where Microsoft is located unless they have an agreement with that company saying, "Hey, yeah, we'll support you fully and we'll enforce your right to protect your keys." Now, when I say keys, I don't mean keys to the car, keys to the house, keys to something like that. I mean digital keys that are basically your access to your license to use a piece of software, including the software in your phone or your tablet or your computer, such as Windows. So I've seen people mention Kinguin and HooKey and all these other places, and none of them are legitimate, and most of them are located in China. And there are tons of websites, and they sell the Windows keys and other kinds of keys for just about whatever you can think of for really, really low prices. And I keep on seeing people saying, "Hey, yeah, they're cheap, and you know what? It's okay. Go ahead and buy here." And I'll quote. Let's see. Somebody mentioned them on Linus Tech Tips' forum, and he said, where is it? Here we go. You could, for example, buy this license on HooKeys. And I'm not going to click on it because I don't know if it's a malware infected website, which is definitely possible with some of these key sellers. But I asked them, is it legit? Are they a registered Windows partner? Do they have the right to sell these keys in this manner? Because if they are a bulk buyer of Windows keys, those Windows keys are not supposed to be sold to end users because it's a bulk purchase. It doesn't matter which bulk purchase program, unless their contract specifically gives them permission to sell the keys to an end user on their website, it's not legal. And so he wrote back and said, "I don't know. They could be buying OEM keys straight from Microsoft in bulk. This is very common, you know." Well, yeah, I know. And let's see. Then somebody else wrote back to me and said, where is it? Get a key from a reseller. Can't see a Pro one costing more than 30 euros. 30 euros? $30? Doesn't matter. It's still illegal. There's an official price for Windows 11. It's about $100. Maybe a little bit more. Windows Pro, closer to $200. So if you're getting a price that's well below that, or even $90, and they're not an official Windows reseller, it's not a legal copy. It may be that you are the only person in possession of that key number because they're selling bulk keys. But it could be that they're selling the same key to multiple people. Eventually, enough people have that key, and when Microsoft notices that, they can shut down that key in the Windows authorization server, which means that you'll go back to the unregistered version of Windows and it'll constantly nag you to get a key. So I wrote back and I said, that's the point I'm asking you about. HooKeys is located in Hong Kong, just like several other illegal key sellers like Kinguin. There is no indication on HooKeys that it is an MS partner. Therefore, the keys they sell are most likely illegal. He responded saying, I don't know where you get your information. I used to work in PC retail, and 30 euros for OEM Windows keys isn't uncommon. They're not meant to be sold by themselves, only with a PC. And he's talking about OEM keys. That's different. But Microsoft has no way of knowing this, and that's why we see a lot of OEM keys being sold by themselves. Also, who cares if they work? Well, okay. True. You can get OEM keys with your OEM computer with Windows installed and activated because that's how an OEM key works. The bulk buyer buys a large number of keys from Microsoft. Then they install them on their machines if that's what the customer wants on their machine. And the customer thus gets a huge discount on the actual Windows key cost. But like this person said, they're not meant to be sold by themselves, only with an OEM PC. Then he says, Microsoft has no way of knowing. Well, not actually true. Because if Microsoft's activation server, and it does, looks at the footprint or fingerprint, whatever you want to call it, of a non-OEM PC and identifies the hardware in it and the software in it, which it can do, it will know the difference between an OEM, say from Dell or HP or Acer or Asus or something like that, and a custom-built PC like mine. They'll be able to say, hey, you've got an OEM key, but you're not using it on an OEM computer. So who cares if they work? Well, that's a good argument in one respect, because Microsoft isn't necessarily going to pursue the matter legally, let alone actually deactivating your key, unless they see the same key being used on several computers. And there's also this other little caveat where if you install Windows too many times on a computer that has a change in configuration, eventually the authentication server may say, sorry, you've used up your free activations, and you'll have to get another copy of Windows. Well, the license anyways. It'll still work. Your computer will work and Windows will still work, but it will be the Nagware version where it's saying, Windows needs to be activated. Please buy a key and activate Windows, blah, 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 blah. If you don't mind the Nagware, well, yes, you can do that. And will Microsoft come after you for it? Probably not, in all honesty, but there's no guarantee because Microsoft legally has the right to go after any and every single person who is not appropriately using their key, whether it is an illegally sold key, it's a bulk key that's sold, it's to an end user without an OEM computer, it is a key stolen from somebody, which is a possibility, it is an illegitimate key that it has been sold to multiple people, or whatever. Microsoft legally has the option of not just deactivating your Windows as a registered version, but also pursuing the matter in court. Now, if you're an individual, they're probably not going to get any money out of it, but they could be like Monsanto, who sued farmers out of business after their crops were cross-contaminated by other farmers' crops, ending up with the GMO strains made by Monsanto. They didn't buy it. They didn't steal it. It was caused by natural reasons, cross-pollination, wind, that sort of thing. But Monsanto was able to sue those people in court and win, even though what they were doing was wrong. And they even collected information about these farmers illegally, trespassing on their property and stealing samples without consent from the farmer, and they got away with it. And now Bayer owns Monsanto, but Bayer is the same kind of unethical company that Monsanto is. So, will Microsoft ever go in that direction just to teach people a lesson? You never know. I mean, Bill Gates is not exactly known to be an honest, scrupulous guy. Yeah, he's got his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but it's kind of a smokescreen to hide from you the fact that, well, Bill Gates has done some bad things. He stole the whole concept of Windows from Steve Jobs and Wozniak, the founders of Apple, and won in court. And more recently, his wife left him. Because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile sex trafficker. Yeah. So they could. So if you are like really, really nervous about the idea of buying an illegitimate copy or an illegitimate license or a shared license that Microsoft could shut off your activation or in the extreme case come after you, especially if you've got a big business with lots of money that they can get from you, then you probably should steer clear of these websites that sell cheap Windows keys without an OEM computer. I'm not going to say that you should get one if you don't have any qualms about it. That's really on you. And I'm not about to encourage it. I just want you to understand that no matter the fact that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 1,000, a million people say it's legal. And I've seen several people, even people I respect, claim that it's illegal. That it's legal. Because, actually after I responded to this guy and I told him, hey, Windows keys for 30 euros are not legal. There's only one legit price for keys and anything that low is not. And another guy responded, of course they're legal. You've just paid for a key. You're going to get a receipt and pay taxes on the purchase. If it were illegal, wouldn't it be free? You think pirates are going to give away the keys? They want their money. And these bulk resellers who are selling in violation of contracts, they want their money. That's not going to be given away. The logic doesn't even make sense. I mean, just because you've paid for it and paid some taxes to some government doesn't mean that what you've done is illegal. It doesn't mean that the seller was performing an action that was allowed by Microsoft, or the contract with the reseller, or the contract with the person that got the keys from the reseller and sold them to somebody else. However those keys were acquired, it's still illegal if they're OEM keys that were bought in bulk and not sold on an OEM computer. All right. This other guy continues. Sure, with these cheap keys, you don't really get to move the key if you build a brand new computer, as they often bind to the motherboard, but in all other sense, it's a legit Windows key. No, it's not. And yes, you're correct that you may not be able to migrate your key to a brand new computer. You might, but you might not. The fact that you've got a cheap key and you can't move it to another computer has nothing to do with whether it's legit or not. It's whether the contract between the buyer and Microsoft is being violated. It's whether you're violating the end user license agreement. It's whether you're violating laws in your country. Okay? And then this guy goes on to say, if you're real cheap, you can go on eBay. And he's bought from Kinguin, and they've always worked. Yeah, well, just because they work doesn't make them legal, doesn't make them okay to get. And if you really want to get malware, well, eBay is one of those places where hackers like to sell keys and software for cheap and include malware hidden inside. You know what that's called? That's called buying Trojanware. You know what a Trojan is. A Trojan horse is where it looks like a horse statue on the outside, but inside there are soldiers. Well, in this case, it looks like a legitimate piece of software. It works like a legitimate piece of software, but hidden inside of it is malware, or is a downloader that will download malware off of their command and control server so they can take partial or complete control over your computer, up to and including stealing all of your data, encrypting it, selling it on the black market, exposing you to identity theft, and so on. So claiming that buying it on Kinguin, or much less on eBay or WhoKeys or any of these other places, and that it's legit and safe, is completely not true. Anytime you buy illegal keys on a website, you are risking being infected. Even if you don't buy the keys and you just go to that website, you might get infected. Of course, he does add at the end of this other guy, at the end of his statement, he says, of course, it's your money at the end of the day, and if you so much want to, go ahead and buy a Windows key straight from the Microsoft store for 150 euros, but I'd rather have that go towards a 4070 Ti, which is a graphics card, and use the free Windows with a watermark, which you can do. Now, will Microsoft ever pursue the fact that you have Windows not activated and you've been using it for 10 years? It's anybody's guess if they're ever going to bother to go after every little end user that does that. But here's the thing. Again, Kinguin is a known illegal seller of keys. Just because you can buy it and pay tax doesn't make it legal. Microsoft spells it out very clearly. The individual sale of bulk certificates to end users is prohibited unless they have a partnership and their contract allows for that kind of sale. The fact that Kinguin, WhoKeys, and others are located in China should give you a clue. Microsoft has no way to force China to shut down the illegal suppliers. That doesn't make it legal. There is a set market price for Windows keys, and whether you pay $1 or $80, that doesn't make the key legal. And since you bought it from an overseas company, you did not pay the taxes you may be legally obliged to pay in your country. Yeah. So you may owe taxes on that $30 purchase? Ooh. If I sold you a stolen painting and charged taxes for it, would that make it legal? No. If you were discovered to be in possession of it, even if you didn't know it was stolen, it would still be confiscated by the authorities. Microsoft has at its discretion the right and ability to deactivate any key sold in the above-mentioned manner, or even take you to court. Then another guy pops up and says, Microsoft is a scam company to begin with. With all the bloatware, malware, and built-in spy tools, I don't see any problem buying a key from a company which sells otherwise legal and functional keys. I myself would never pay for an OS that installs bloatware, malware, and built-in spy tools. They also don't have the ability to deactivate stuff. There are also loads of people using a less legal Windows version, and they keep functioning like intended desired. None of this makes it legal. And this guy, even on his profile, makes it clear that he has a pirated copy of Windows on his computer. Yes, Windows has engaged in scams, in illegal activities. Yes, there is bloatware in their operating systems and stuff. Yes, they have tools that spy on you and collect data about you, and they share that with the government, and they sell it to whoever they have agreements to sell it with. But it's up to you whether you are going to use that as an excuse to buy keys that are not legal. I'm not a happy person when it comes to Microsoft. I have a lot of complaints about Microsoft. But it's beside the point. I mean, I'm not going to argue about the crimes that have been committed by Microsoft. They have. But whether you choose to buy legit or illegal keys is your choice, and if it comes to it, your problem. I'm merely making sure that you have the truth instead of unsupported and false claims about sites that are clearly selling keys in violation of contracts and laws. They do have the ability, again, to deactivate a key that they feel has been abused. It has happened many times. The question is not if they can or not. The question is under what circumstances. For example, numerous activations, concurrent machines running under the same key that has only a single PC license attached to it. Just because they don't shut down everyone who has an illegal key is not proof that the keys are legal. It suggests that they're either unaware or unwilling to pursue the matter. I mean, look at it this way. If there are 25 million people using illegal keys or duplicate keys, and suddenly Microsoft kicks all of them off of Windows by deactivating it so they can have the NAGWare version, or by completely shutting down Windows on the computer, is that how many of those people will they lose as users that they can collect data from? How many of them will switch to Linux or some other operating system on their computer because they're pissed off about the fact that their $30 license was deactivated and they can no longer use Windows? How many customers would they lose? 25 million. Maybe 5 million, but still, that's a source of revenue for them, even if they didn't buy the key. So then he goes, this second guy goes on, third guy goes on and says, I remember stories where Microsoft didn't care about less legal obtained keys or even cracked Windows versions. If they didn't care, why did they keep on upping the ante on how difficult it was to get an illegal key activated? I've seen it happen. I've seen the cracked software out there. I've seen the authentication server bypass software, and which generally those kind of software are infested with malware and Trojans and stuff like that. And if it's so Microsoft doesn't care kind of a thing, then why does Microsoft keep coming up with different ways to stop people from pirating their software or using their software for free? I mean, this guy isn't even making sense. They would still be able to mine all kinds of user data and make profits on those people that way. True. And market share makes them also more interesting and powerful. Well, interested actually, for trying to sell ads or other junk. Also true. Not sure if they would be willing to lose 10% market share, which is just a number he's throwing out there, due to blocking people and forcing those users onto a different unrelated operating system, i.e. the competition, because Microsoft doesn't like competition. Yeah, true. Microsoft, it doesn't like competition. And there used to be other operating systems out there other than Microsoft and Apple's systems, but they're gone. So then another guy popped in and said, yeah, that's pretty much true. They make their money using your data, and more importantly, the Windows Store, which still sells people stuff regardless of where the license came from or even if it was cracked. Another huge source of income is the Windows licenses sold to corporations and companies that buy in bulk, which is a much, much larger market than home PCs. So we are already the product. I wouldn't mind not paying them for a license either. Yeah, I wouldn't mind not paying for a Windows license either. I don't mind. I've got a legal copy of Windows. But I'm just making you as a consumer who may not understand the legal ramifications of buying a $20, $10, $50, $80, $90 key for Windows on a website, what the legal ramifications are and also the risks you're taking. So let's talk a little bit more about that. If it was simply people saying, hey, they probably don't sell legal keys, but they're cheap, I wouldn't much mind. That doesn't happen, though. Several times now in different IT forums, I've seen people passing these keys off as legal when they're clearly not. The problem is that going to such websites tends to offer up some unwanted risks beyond data collection and questionable keys. It could be as simple as being ripped off. You buy it and you get nothing. Or you buy it and you get a key and it doesn't work. It could be you have your credit card data stolen and sold on the dark net. Or you get a key others have also bought, and then everybody who has that key has Windows deactivate, or the Windows registered version deactivated. Or it could be worse, such as malware installation, data encryption, data exfiltration, where they not encrypt, or they do encrypt, but they also steal your data and then sell it on the darknet. Or even identity theft. These problems have only increased in scope and risk since the internet went public, and the hackers have gone from small-time criminals, anarchists, and hobbyists looking for a thrill to multi-billion-dollar criminal syndicates affecting businesses, utilities, patients, governments, and everyone else in between, including people who cannot afford what they've lost, and worse yet, what happens after them, and even worse than that, they don't even realize in how many different ways they could get screwed. Because, poor people, they're like, so what? They're going to steal my data? They're going to steal my identity even? What are they going to get? Well, guess what? They could sign a contract with a company selling a very expensive Porsche, and it'd be in your name. And then the Porsche would come after you for the bill because it's in your name, your address, your phone number, your social security number, all of the data. And Porsche would expect you to pay up, even if you don't have the car, because you never bought it in the first place. Look, even though I've been using computers since 1980, and I know one or two things about computers, or several thousand if you want to count my knowledge in programming, hardware, maintenance of hardware and software, networking, and malware removal, because of that, I'm a noob to some people, which used to be called a newbie, as in a new user. So why listen to me? I'm only 56. I don't know anything, right? You don't have to listen to me. For example, Linus of Linus Tech Talks himself talked about the activation limits and the illegal keys sold on the gray market. And he did that 4 years ago. And he even explained why he uses non-activated versions of Windows for some of his videos. And he has an excellent reason for doing so. TechNet doesn't exist anymore, so he can't get unlimited usage of a Windows key for all the testing he and his team do of different setups. And he was told at one point by a Microsoft agent, oh, I'm sorry, every time you set up something new, you need to buy a key for it. Which is understandable if they don't know who you are. You're just some small timer who's trying to get a nice YouTube channel set up so you can have millions of followers and earn money from actually doing that. But now you can run Windows on these installations without registering them because it's just a test. And when all is said and done, that version is you're not going to have it on there because the parts are going to be separated and given away and stuff like that. The hard drive is going to be wiped or the SSD is going to be wiped. So let me just reiterate that if you went straight from the Pirate Kings, if you want it straight from the Pirate Kings at Microsoft, and I use the word Pirate Kings because Microsoft has stolen things. All you have to do is look at their website, look at their end user license agreement. I'll put a link in the description. The point is that if someone wants to promote keys sold in violation of contracts, the EULA and or laws, then please don't misrepresent such sources as being legit and legal just because Microsoft is unlikely to turn off those keys. Taxes to someone or some government were paid on top of the tiny price, or just because you hate Bill Gates. I do too, he's a scumbag. People, especially noobs and IT neophytes, deserve to be given accurate info so that they can make informed decisions rather than being misled into buying something that is not legal. If they know and make the choice to do so, that's on them. If they install an OEM version on a different OEM's computer, or on a custom-built PC, thus violating the EULA, that's on them. But especially since some of those sites will rip people off, resell their credit card data, steal their identity, install Trojanware, malware, or spyware, sell a key they've sold to others, thus increasing the likelihood that Microsoft will deactivate the key and so on. It is important for those of us who are trying to help others that we give them accurate information. It's better to spread information on where a gray market is selling illegal keys and say it's probably illegal than to lie. because then we're guilty of not just the crime of promoting illegal key sites, but also the crime of duping victims, making us an accessory to any crimes committed by the key sellers in a worse way than being upfront about the shady source. It's one thing to refer people to a site and say, oh, it's shady. It's another thing entirely to say it's legitimate or legal, and then the customer buys Windows or just goes on the website and gets infected and is ripped off. You're an accessory to the crime. So no matter what your motivations are for avoiding buying a key, don't tell people that those websites are legal. Because unless you've got proof from Microsoft itself, they're not legal. None of them. I don't care if they're located in the US or whatever. If they're not Microsoft partners, if they don't have a contract with Microsoft to resell bulk licenses to end users, and they're supposed to be selling them as part of an OEM setup, it's not legal. Stop telling people this. You're making yourself liable criminally in court for spreading this information. Sorry it took half an hour to tell you all that, and sorry for repeating myself, but I really felt it was very, very important. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.